Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and now publisher at Autonomy Global. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you 100% absolutely should. Today, we are rounding out a great month that we've dedicated to the theme of public safety and defense. This month has been sponsored by Mark 43, whom we greatly appreciate. And today we have the privilege of having with us Bill Daggett. He is the fearless leader of the Delta Advisory Group, or DAG. Get it? Daggett, DAG. I see where you went there, Bill. And we are going to talk to him all about what he's doing in this space to help companies build and grow. So, welcome to the show, Bill.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Absolutely. Now, Bill and I met a while ago. He's also former Air Force. We're going to get into his background here, but he's sitting in North Dakota right now, part of that amazing ecosystem up there. And so, really excited to have you on the show today, Bill. Bill, tell them a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay. I grew up in the area, enlisted straight out of high school. I was right into the Air Force as an E1, was a security policeman, which really dates myself since it's been almost 30 years since they changed to security forces now. Ended up going to the academy, then went to pilot training. Was flying Learjets for the Air Force when, as you know, every generation or so they think they have too many pilots, and so the offer at the time was if you can find a job in the Guard, you will waive all of your service commitments. So that was about the time in around 2005 when the Fargo Air National Guard unit was losing their F-16s and converting to MQ-1s. And that's kind of when I started in the drone industry. They hired me mostly because I met their impossibly high standards of being a rated pilot, willing to live in Fargo and fly drones.
The
And so
trifecta,
that's
if
where I
you
started.
will.
Yeah. So ended up serving there for quite some time. Did MQ-1s, MQ-9s. Spent a couple years out in DC in the program management office for the Air National Guard MQ-1, MQ-9 program as we were converting from one to the other. At the end, we had 12 units across 11 states that we tried to help assist in getting the mission done. Um, then did some time overseas. Then when I transitioned out of uniform, did some time as a contractor, flying MQ-9 operations. And then all along the way, did a few other things, but about 10 years ago, I started trying to fill that gap of knowledge that I had in the commercial UAS world.
All
Um,
right, perfect. Before we get into that and your origin story for DAG, I want to foot stomp a couple things for the audience. Number one, we are live, so please jump in the chat, say hello, tell us where you're from, give Bill some positive encouragement. Of course, ask him questions. The second thing I want to say is, if you do have military experience, what you just heard was an incredibly well-rounded and diverse career. If you don't have military experience, let me just take a second to explain. Not only then does Bill have an enlisted and officer perspective, and an officer that graduated from the United States Air Force Academy, a pilot, so crewed aircraft, uncrewed aircraft, and then from active duty to the Guard, talk about another kind of different set of cultures, if you will. Bill, you're shaking your head because you know what I'm talking about here. The Guard is very different in terms of culture and also legal authorities, in its operations. And then to go into the contracting world, I mean, holy shnikes, it's no wonder you looked around, especially in a place like North Dakota that has been on the cutting edge of the commercial drone industry since the very beginning. That's where you live. You're looking around thinking, I've got knowledge and experience that can translate over here. So tell us a little bit about this origin story. Why did you create DAG?
well, after trying to track the commercial UAS industry as it was growing, uh, we really saw that there's uh, a lot of people over promising and under delivering.
Hmm.
And we're still, although our industry has grown a lot over the last 2 decades, we're still relatively small. And one bad actor can really have an impact on the entire industry. We've seen
Right,
that
right, for
on
sure.
both sides. So we really started DAG to try to help people understand what's real and what is not, and to separate the smoke from the fire.
Okay, so elaborate on that. What do you mean? In other words, in the perfect world, who are your clients and what are you doing for them?
Well, we internally we separate our clients into two main categories. We call them investors and inventors. On the investor side, whether it's an individual or institution, we come alongside, usually fold into their existing processes and help them with due diligence to help them understand what questions to ask. And we, certainly we don't make the decision for them, but we try to give them the tools so that they can make the most informed decision possible. So they truly understand what is the risk and what is the viability of this product. On the inventor side, if someone has a UAS or US enabling technology, we sit down with them, go through a discovery period, and try to help them lay out a viable pathway to revenue. Try to give them, based on our experience, with the group, we've been in lots of different facets of the industry for quite some time. We can usually help them hone their messaging or focus on a particular aspect of the market that we think would be best for their success.
All right, excellent, excellent. And I know that you said 10 years, so congratulations on a decade. I mean, look, Bill, let's face it, I'm an entrepreneur too. We both come from the military. Everybody tells me, and I'm in my 5-year anniversary this year. So really excited about that. But you make it past that 5-year point, you're doing pretty well. You make it to 10. I mean, you're established here, and you've been watching this industry evolve over time. Your business has evolved with it. Tell me, what have you seen, and how has that evolution impacted, the markets and the advice you're giving people?
Well, one thing that's been very interesting to watch over the years is uh, a trend is the investors are becoming much more informed in their questioning. Whereas
Interesting.
before, in the 2010 to 2015, we joke that, people are just throwing trash bags of cash at anything that said drone at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Where now
That
they're
was a nice
becoming a
place
lot.
to be if you were a drone company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, that ended up with a lot of that cash being burned up.
yeah,
And
and
at the end of the
squandered. Yeah.
day, yeah, no sustainable revenue. Um, so that's been really interesting. And I'm kind of a history buff, so it's been the best analogy like I try to use. If you take crude aviation history and overlay it on uncrewed aviation history, there's a lot of similarities. Uh, history might not repeat, but it does rhyme often.
Hmm.
So in that 2005, 2007 time frame when I was getting my start, I equate that to kind of the end of World War One, where, okay, we've got this airplane thing, it falls out of the sky every once in a while. We don't really know what we're going to do with it, but we've got lots of great ideas what it might become.
Yeah.
And, as it's coming now, I would say we're kind of at the end of equivalent of World War II. Just about to start that golden age in aviation, because technology is starting to enable the good ideas people have had for the last 10, 15, 20 years. We're getting the swap and the power and the regulations. That's all coming together. And I'm really excited to be in this industry at this point.
Well, yes, so am I. Obviously, I've been watching it like you, and in terms of the investment money, agreed. The purses are tighter, but what we're seeing, I think, is a lot more collaboration, and I think you would agree. We're also seeing acquisitions, consolidation. Kind of those three, I'd call them three big buckets, are all happening as we look forward. Um, so with all of that as kind of context and background, what is kind of the major problem that you're solving in the drone industry, would you say, and particularly in the areas of public safety and defense, because these are burgeoning, these are big markets right now, right? And as that evolution has occurred, defense has always been, I think, an early adopter. I mean, you know this. You were flying these drones for the Guard, big ones. But now it's the first drone war with Ukraine and Russia, as you talked about on a recent panel at the UAS summit. I think we've got a picture of that will pop up. I love that. We could talk about that more. But also, when you think about use cases, public safety is one of those kind of drones for good, societally positive use cases.
Mhm.
So, in those particular arenas, what problems are you solving there?
Well, overall, the major problem that we pride ourselves in solving is, and not to belabor the point, but the UAS industry is full of hype. Yeah, especially if you're a newcomer or an investor. It's tough to separate that fact from fiction.
Yeah.
And so that's where we come in. We'll cut through that and provide you that objective, clear-eyed insight. Um, what we say, there's no such thing as good news or bad news. There's just information. And the more we share that information, the better decisions everyone can make. So we really pride ourselves in giving you our authentic and complete understanding of whatever question we're asked to answer.
Yeah. So obviously the drone space is a big area for you. But what about advanced air mobility like the electric vertical takeoff and landing crowd, or other enabling technologies, Bill, whether it's software, artificial intelligence? Are you advising companies kind of across that spectrum of emerging technologies?
We are, but it's not as much of our focus. That we'll sometimes get clients that are established companies, either in a different market outside the UAS industry or even overseas, where they ask our help to identify a potential product market fit in our core areas. And then we go through that discovery process and try to help them set them up for the best pathway to success.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's kind of get down to brass tacks and how exactly do you help drone companies then understand the market before they launch a product? Like, what does that actually entail?
Uh, I'll use your answer. It depends on the client because it's much different. Again, if it's your established major DoD contractor that has a product that you want to bring into it, you're going to have a much different outlook on things than a person just coming out of college that isn't involved in the UAS industry that thinks they have a great concept. And so, so I hate to use that answer, but it really depends. And that's where I think our strength is because we can access through our relationships a lot of different areas of the industry, just because we've been involved so long that we really have an opportunity to test the market and see what kind of response. So, an example, we had a client come to us. I have this technology idea, and I'm going to start a company to do that. So we went through our process. As alongside of it, we reached out to some people we knew at a major OEM, and the response back was, "Yeah, that's such a great idea. It's technology. We're allocating 25 million of internal research on it ourselves, and we've been doing it for this long." And obviously, without providing any information that's not publicly available, we can help guide, like, okay, before you bet your house on this, you may want to reconsider or at least get very good IP, understand the marketplace before you go forward. And me personally, that's a strong passion of mine because I bet my house on a dream. I know what it's like to go to bed on Thursday night having no understanding of how I was going to make payroll on Friday. And so if I can bring that insight and help prevent people from doing that, uh, that's mission accomplished for us.
Is that a story we need to hear if you're willing to share? Because that sounds really intriguing. I mean, look, any entrepreneur, any inventor, entering into business, you're kind of standing on the edge of a cliff, right? And that that feeling of I'm jumping off, either I'm going to fly or I'm going to splat. And so I don't know if you're willing to share that story because it sounds like it's really shaped your thinking and your culture in your company.
Yes, and it's along the way, although I was fully activated as a guardsman, I'm very entrepreneurial in nature. I think I started doing side companies when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
It's always been embedded in me. And so along the way, I had a few different side companies that I started. The one I was referencing in that case was a sandwich company that focused on school food programs. And so we developed and brought to market a product that had no, it was a peanut butter and jelly replacement that didn't have any peanut allergies in it.
Oh, wow.
I was a preschool teacher, and so that was I knew the impact that could have on children. So, um, it was not part of the plan, but the opportunity came up, and so I pitched in with some friends, and we uh, stood up the sandwich company. And when we sold it after about 3 or 4 years, we were in 6 of the 10 largest school districts across the nation. So.
All right. So you bet the house. And in this case, literally the house won. uh your
Yes.
your house. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's such a great story, and honestly it is so important because there are a lot of peanut allergies, and to kind of find that interesting product and then to grow that and expand it and to know what that feeling is like of, I stepped off the cliff. And here's how it turned out for me. But I'm sure before you just threw your money in, bet your own house, literally, you did some market research, you did some of the things you're doing now for people. So, look, nobody does this on an island, Bill. I know you've got an amazing team. In fact, I think we have a picture of your office manager with you at the recent AUVSI Exponential. There
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
So tell us about your team.
Yeah, well, a group of industry professionals, it just spread across the country. We're kind of a quiet team. We don't do nearly as much social media or posting as the Dons of the world. But in that situation, this was, I think, just last month when
Yeah.
AVSI had their exponential in Dusseldorf. Um, we went there with a theory. We think that there's a strong demand to come into the U.S. Maybe we can find some partners to assist that. And that was really a very good show, especially considering it was their first one in Europe. It was relatively small, but I think it's going to be much larger next year, and we've already put it on our calendar to attend again. It was very interesting seeing the differences between the European market and the US market, and the similarities. We're more alike than different in many ways.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome. And I definitely want to dig into that.
yeah.
But your office manager came along with you, and I
Yep.
believe before with the show, you told me that she is married to your co-founder for DAG.
Yes. Yep.
And and you said you have teammates kind of scattered across. So are these like contractors or just other experts? In other words, you've created like a DAG ecosystem of go-to experts that you phone a friend when you've got an interesting issue.
Correct. Yeah, that's most of the DAG team are we'll call it part-time. We only have between 3 and 4 working full-time, just because we like to stay small and agile.
Yep.
And when we come across a potential client or a question that we don't have the expertise off the top of our head, like AAM or RF questions or EM, like things that I, as a knuckle dragging pilot, don't feel comfortable in talking to or advising on.
Yeah.
That's when we bring in someone on a project base that we have an existing relationship with.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned IP. I know you also have attorneys that you work with as well.
Yeah.
One in the Fargo area that's an IP expert.
Yeah. Fargo Patent and Law and Tom Kading is putting together a really great team that's very focused on IP and trademark defense in the UAS industry. They're doing some great work, for quite a few different clients. Um, and it's been fun partnering with them and seeing the results of their efforts.
Yeah, I think IP is one of those things that, especially for designers of, whether it's hardware, software, you name it, and then the advent of AI and the implications of that to those designs in terms of people accessing information, And I think it's just going to continue to grow in terms of importance. So I know that's another area where you collaborate and advise people on. But you guys also play a role in regulation and compliance and certifications. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. If someone comes to us and says, for instance, we're a law enforcement entity that wants to establish a UAS program, we help them build that program and to include regulatory compliance, TTPs or standard operating procedures. Our goal is to help them build so that after a period of time, we can move on and they can continue operations on themselves, by themselves. And we we think we're good at that because we don't make any drones ourselves, nor or do we do operations as a day-to-day. We have that expertise. We just would rather help you build it and then move on and help someone else. And especially as drone as a first responder gets rolled out across the country, as we see that pace accelerating, we're really excited about that market.
Well, and when you think about public safety and drones and the concept of evolution, absolutely. I mean, Bill, I was just at the Drone Responders National Public Safety UAS conference in Williamsburg, Virginia. And everybody's now talking, of course, about DFR 2.0, which is let's get the pilots off the roofs. I'm sure you can appreciate having been a drone pilot. I mean, you're sitting probably in an internal thing, flying things from across the world. But these folks have been on rooftops, keeping drones in their visual line of sight, and now we're talking about drone in a box solutions, more autonomy, the tactical beyond visual line of sight waiver that the FAA just kind of beefed up a little bit, shielded operations waiver combined those. So lots of movement in this space. But one of the things, Bill, that of course we see universally in the public safety arena is resource constraints. And I know you've been looking at this and you're thinking of ways to bring drone opportunities to entire communities. Tell us about the program that you're looking to launch.
Yes, and we're really excited about this opportunity. The team came up with the concept, and we're calling it Community Aerial Response Ecosystem. And as in North Dakota, as you all know, we don't have a whole lot of population density. We joke that when COVID came out and they told us to stand 6 feet apart, we nodded and awkwardly shuffled a little closer together. So, as DFR rolls out across the nation, and we're seeing that even accelerate, how is there a way for us to bring that cost of operation down to that mid, small, or even rural community? Because DFR could have a very large impact in safety in those areas as well. So what if instead of at a fire department or at a police department, what if that UAS was stationed at a school? And they're also geographically separated, spread out, usually in a community. And the day-to-day that UAS is there to support the school, pick up, drop off, school events. As we all know, school safety is a very large issue, and unfortunately will only increase in risk as time goes on. So this allows us to have something on property most of the time, unless there's a higher need from someone in the community. And that could be a fire department, or it could be a police department. It might be a county or a higher level law enforcement community. Could be the Department of Transportation. But by utilizing this and making it a community asset, we'll increase the utilization, at least that's our assumption. It will increase the utilization while spreading the cost around multiple entities. And that will make it accessible to smaller and rural communities.
Well, first of all, I love this idea. And second of all, as I was talking to you before the show, Jason Day from the Texas Department of Public Safety out of Austin authored an article for Autonomy Global titled Drones as a Service. And this is something that his community is looking at in terms of shared resources. Now, he postured this more so, Bill, in terms of shared infrastructure. Because, it's not, this, it's not just the drone and just say, you can buy an awesome drone in the box solution. And there's a lot of them out there. I'm not going to start ticking off company names. We all kind of know who they are if you're in this industry. But then there's, of course, the management system, if you will, like whether you drone orchestration system or computer aided dispatch and records management system, which is Mark 43. That's our sponsor this month. Um, so as you're kind of looking to frame this up, first of all, are you looking to do this in your local community first out there in North Dakota in the Fargo area?
Uh, Absolutely. I got the opportunity to testify in front of the North Dakota State Legislature, which is in session, to request their support to establish a pilot program where we spend a year and a half or 2 years analyzing different UAS systems, different computer-aided dispatch, and see what works for North Dakota, and
Yeah.
with the hopes of taking that data so that future legislators and other states can benefit so they make that data-driven decision of, is this a feasible, what does that cost sharing look like? And what are the ongoing costs to maintain this support for the community? So our proposal is to start actually up in Grand Forks, since
Oh,
there's a lot of coverage and there's a lot of UAS stuff going up on there already that we can
yeah,
leverage the
100%.
existing infrastructure. Yes. And the city is very supportive, and so is the entire community. Uh, but also include one or two remote rural locations. Um, One example might be there's a high school out at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. Would that be a good use case? And then be able to operate in our challenging environment over time, and we'll be able to identify trends so that, again, other communities can make data driven decisions on what might work best.
Yeah, well, I mean, heck, Bill, if you're doing it on Grand Forks Air Force Base, you might as well tap into Project Ultra, right? Tom Sawyer and
Abs-
that crowd out there, because they're looking to normalize drone operations for logistics and other reasons, really daily life on bases and in the national airspace between bases, etc. So that's pretty amazing. I think this is something that, Bill, as you're looking at your care, and again, everybody, this is an acronym, CARE. As you're looking at the care program, it seems to me that one of the things you'll also need to orchestrate, besides, as you said, TTPs, right? Tactics, techniques, procedures, concepts of operation, what are the policy memos, also kind of UAS traffic management, right? UTM. Because if you've got one of these things, just say on a school, just say at Grand Forks, like not on the base, but like in the city. And, there's recreational pilots, there's all kinds of, you're going to need a situational awareness platform in general. And then when there really is an emergency and all of a sudden the local law enforcement folks are like, we need to repurpose that. Like, sorry guys, we're not watching pickup traffic day in front of the school. We're going here to this fire. You're going to have to, work out that strategic deconfliction in process, but also in airspace. So is that something so I guess bottom line is, Bill, I know you're waiting for the funds to fall, and that's part of it. Um, are you trying to gather up partners right now?
Uh, yes, we're reaching out to community entities and finding out who would be that willing partner. If we are assured of the funding, then we will be looking for partners throughout the industry that want to come and try to help us test this concept. And like you said, there's quite a few that have very impressive technology. We'll certainly be looking for people to help us tailor it to the concept that we're looking at. And certainly, if anyone will be at Exponential and Commercial UAV Expo as well. anyone might be interested in helping us flesh out this concept, find someone with a DAG shirt and pull us aside. We'd love to have that conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll just go to it right now. Bill is actually going to be at our Law Tech Connect workshop as part of Exponential. He'll be moderating actually a maritime panel. Amazing folks on that. So join Bill, and you can meet him in person at the happy hour Sunday evening, and then of course the event Monday, and on the expo hall floor and throughout the week. So if you haven't registered yet, early bird is going to expire soon, next Friday, I believe, April 4th. So act now, get your tickets. It's going to be awesome. And we're looking forward to having all of you there. And then you get to talk to experts like Bill about this and other projects. Speaking of other projects, let's talk a little bit about that, because this CARE could bridge into the defense world. And that's kind of the other part of our theme this month. We talked about DFR and your expertise and your assistance in that space, setting up programs, scaling them, advising, and now hopefully launching this CARE initiative in the North Dakota arena. Tell us a little bit more about like your activities in the defense space in particular, because frankly, Bill, you and I are both watching this. There's a lot of churn right now, I think, in this space. A little bit of uncertainty has been injected over the last couple of months, even in terms of established programs that thought they had funding, that with a continuing resolution and no appropriation bill, some of these things that we even people thought were certain maybe are not so certain. So, what are you doing in this space right now?
Well, right now we're spending a lot of time reacting to what we see as what could be a geometric or a huge shift in the market. Like when we were at Dusseldorf, and that was only 6 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah.
We went there focused on understanding the European market and seeing what we could do to bring them to the US market, because we need to start having that interchange across the pond to make sure that we're ready for whatever that next conflict is.
Yeah.
You mentioned the conflict in Ukraine, and I was very proud to have that panel there of experts that had firsthand experience there at the UAS summit. One of them, when I asked him to attend it, Brian, he said, well, Bill, I'm not sure if my input is really effective because I haven't been on the front lines in like 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh, that's the speed of relevance.
Yeah, and here we're stuck in our safety zone, if you will, where we don't have that existential threat pushing our iteration. And now you layer that on top of the recent changes in our outlook. The defense market has changed significantly. If it's the case that Europe and NATO will no longer rely on the US for underpinning of defense, what does that mean for European spending and the UAS market? Will we see a reverse of American companies wanting to establish a European beachhead because of their great increase in defense spending? And that'll be fascinating to see how that fleshes out. Many countries in the EU have announced that they're increasing spending, but it'll take some time before that trickles down to actual activity. And how that fleshes out is it will be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, it will be, between tariffs and interesting things happening at entry points. I'm hoping we have a big crowd at Exponential, but I'm not really sure. Look, we've already seen it. Some memos from the executive branch about government employees and travel, has already impacted some local events. So the defense market is, I think, really interesting right now in terms of where it's going. I will say that, if you follow Defense Innovation Unit, you follow AFWorks, they're still putting out, different calls for technology. So if you guys aren't on those lists, you should be on them. I know Bill and his team are. So there are definitely still needs, but I agree. It's going to be interesting to see, over the next several months, kind of how things are changing. And maybe, like you said, Bill, whether it's a sleepy European market or maybe even a Canadian market that starts kind of saying, "Hey, we're doing it alone here too," or we'll take other technologies. Uh, you know, Come on down. I know Aerial Evolution Canada Group. I think they'll be having their event in November this year. I went last year; it was great. I'm still planning to go. So, I didn't make it to Dusseldorf this year, but God willing, I'm going to maybe hit Germany and Switzerland towards the end of the year for a bunch of different things, and really looking forward to that. So, all right, as you're looking forward, we're all kind of monitoring what's happening in the public safety market, which, frankly, because it's not federal, seems to be doing pretty damn well, relatively speaking right now. And then, of course, the defense market that we just talked about. As you look forward in 2025, Bill, like what are some other things we can expect from your company?
Well, another program that we're working with some government partners on is kind of the melding of that public safety and counter UAS. As DFR rolls out, the your previous guest alluded to this month, counter UAS becomes more and more of an issue because there's going to be, finally, it seems like what we were saying 20 years ago, hey, there's going to be drones everywhere. Now we're starting to get towards what we thought was 2 weeks away for the
Yeah,
last long time. And so we're bringing together a team to assist in that we will, using the expertise that we have from relationships overseas and in the US, develop profiles where if a installation, whether it's a prison or a base or a city or an airport, and help them develop their responses to a UAS. So maybe we bring up a group one and just fly along the perimeter. Okay, what does that look like? On paper, this is supposed to be your response.
right.
What about a group two? What about a group three? And so, somewhat of a red team, if you will. And we're getting a pretty substantial response that because many, although there are those that do that, we really focus on quickly trying to just take you as you are and see, because the same technology at one place might be completely different in another. If we drop a radar, next to you in Colorado, it's going to have a much different capability than if we drop it here at the bottom of the Red River Valley in North Dakota. And
Right.
so, how does your local policies and procedures and authorities interact? If I'm supposed to communicate with law enforcement and you call them and they don't respond, okay, let's test that before it happens for real.
Yeah.
And so that's uh, another exciting initiative that again seems to be getting traction. And I say I'm mostly just along for the ride. It's usually the team coming together, and I just get to talk with great people like you and try to sound intelligent about it. But it's really the team that's doing most of the rowing on it.
Well, what you're doing makes sense because I think in the wake of New Jersey's drone gate, as everybody's calling it, other states and cities looked around and said, wait a minute, like what do we have? Like what capabilities do we have? Because this isn't like far fetched to think that it couldn't happen here too, right? And so the red team concept, which by the way, everybody, if you don't know, is like kind of a military concept. The red versus blue, blue being kind of the home team, if you will. Red like basically simulating what the enemy or the adversary would do, and then how does blue respond? That makes a lot of sense. And then I'm sure you're collaborating, like you said, with counter UAS companies that have these various products. So as you're flying this red drone, saying, all right, well, here's kind of a menu of things that are possible. Let's see what works in this place agnostically, right? So what I love about what you're doing, Bill, I mean, there's a lot of great companies out there, right? But if pick one. I'm not going to say a name. I work with a lot of them. If they're the one showcasing their technology, there's going to be some inherent bias there. If you're the one bringing them to the table with like a handful of others, it's definitely more of kind of a level playing field, if you will, in terms of what's the capabilities going to work here. And maybe this, company X doesn't win out on this one, but maybe something about it is perfect for this other one over here. So, that's a great service that you're providing. So to kind of sum it all up, I mean, consulting extraordinaire in terms of defense, public safety, UAS writ large, and launching several new initiatives, including this CARE program with public safety in the local community, emergency response, and then kind of this red team counter UAS focus. Um, Really exciting. How do people learn more about DAG? I mean, we heard you're going to be at Exponential. That's kind of your next trip in Houston. But beyond that, like if they want to reach you right now or tomorrow, how would they do that?
Best way would be to go on our website, which is uas-insight.com. I believe that's up on the screen, or follow us on LinkedIn. We try to, although again, we not as conversational as you are, but we try to put out information, and we try to be as responsive as possible.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And then I knew the time would fly, Bill, with everything you're doing. But as we kind of close out, any concluding remarks for the audience that you want them to walk away from this show with this thing?
We will help you understand what's real and what is not. And that's what we pride ourselves in. We get to that answer in as efficiently as possible. We don't work for commission. We don't work for equity. We try to give you that objective feedback. And if that means that we have less work, we're perfectly fine with that. We're here to try to help the industry move forward. We can all still help grow the pie like you're doing. I don't have to take from someone else to make my piece bigger. We can all still help the industry grow as an entire industry.
Yeah,
But
I'll steal from the Navy. The rising tide raises all ships, right? I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. And so, thank you for what you're doing, not just in North Dakota, but well beyond that, across the nation, and now globally, with the connections you're making in Europe and in Asia. You didn't mention Asia, but I know you're working over there too, and elsewhere. And really look forward to seeing you again in person, Bill, at in Houston. And everybody else out there, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you reach out to Bill if you have any questions about what you're trying to achieve, what's going on in the industry. If you want the real answer, this is the guy to call. So appreciate you, Bill. And hey, everybody, that wraps up a month that we've dedicated to public safety and defense, sponsored by Mark 43. Next month, if there's one thing that we've seen lately, besides this growth in public safety recently, it's also a concern about safety in general. And what we have next month is a theme of safety and standards, sponsored by Viasat. So join us with Lisa B from Viasat. She works with ICAO, and Viasat is a global company. So safety is something they're all about. So thank you so much, everybody. We are out here.
thanks, Don. Thanks for everything you do.